Hi, everybody, and welcome to this Explain Everything webinar on building confidence when creating video content for your students. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them at any time. We have our friend Kuba, known as Cooper, who's here on the chat, who's going to be keeping an eye on it. And yeah, he'll definitely answer all of your questions. And I'm Anastasia from Explain Everything, and I'm very proud and excited to introduce our guest today. So this is Professor Valerie Pennington. She's a biology professor at Southwestern College in California and a YouTube creator with 10 years of experience. So hi, Valerie, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. It is absolutely a pleasure to be here with you today. This is just awesome.
Yeah, we are very excited. And I just kind of wanted to start by saying that you picked the title of this webinar yourself. And I know that this is an issue that's like really important to you and something that's very close to your heart. So maybe you could just tell us like real quick, I know we're going to get into more detail in a moment, but why is it that breaking through this fear of video creation is such an important topic to you personally?
It is really important because it has taken me a while to realize that it wasn't just me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm kind of like old school YouTube. Like I started back in the olden days. Things have changed a lot, obviously, since then. And in the last year, I've been working as the teaching with technology coordinator at my college. And so I have been working nonstop with faculty who are, making videos for their students pretty much nonstop. And I'm realizing that what holds people back isn't the technology so much as it is what's going on in our heads. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And why is making video so much more difficult than talking to people, having a conversation, teaching a class live, giving a live presentation? We'll get into that, but I really feel like this topic is not really discussed enough because it's easier to talk about the tech. Like I could flood my YouTube channel with, comparing cameras and comparing microphones and comparing, let's look at this app or that app. And that's interesting. And that is important. But what I'm getting more and more from
Mm-hmm.
faculty is that's not what is so challenging. That's not what's holding me back. And I think that the last reason why I think we need to talk about this is because a YouTuber that I absolutely adore, I think he's amazing. He seems like such a natural, right? Just the way he is on YouTube. And he told me recently something that I never knew about him. He said, "You want to know how long it took me to go from when I decided I wanted to put a video on YouTube and
Mm-hmm.
when I actually did it?" And I said, I didn't think it would be that long. He said 12 years.
Oh my
And I
God.
said, "Are you kidding me? 12 years?" And that's when it was like, ding, we need to talk about this topic because it's not just you. Those of you that are watching, it is not just you, it is everybody. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to get to talk about this with you today.
Yeah, me too. I think that, social media and just generally all of this video content and all the content that we see on an everyday basis has kind of led us to believe that people are just like naturally perfect. They're naturally well-spoken. They're naturally eloquent and confident and beautiful and et cetera, et cetera. But it's something that everybody who has succeeded at this has put so much work into, and we don't really see it. We just see the tip of the iceberg, right? And that's actually one thing I wanted to bring up real quick because I did introduce you as the professor of biology, anatomy, physiology. But yes, Valerie is also the teaching with technology coordinator at her college, Southwestern College. So definitely her firsthand experience and decade, right? It's a decade of experience here on YouTube.
I'm so old on YouTube. It's ridiculous.
But that's a good thing because when the pandemic hit, you were ready, right? You were ready to help other people make that leap, right?
The pandemic has been amazing for those of us who are established on YouTube. I will
Mm-hmm.
say it's made it harder for people who want to start because everyone went in lockdown. It's like, well, let's make a YouTube channel, and as I'll talk about, it's unfortunately not as easy as that. But yeah, it really gave me the opportunity to I did a hard pivot. And because my job changed, the content that I have been making this past year has all been for educators and
Mm-hmm.
presenters. So that has been very different for me. Traditionally, I'm, general biology and anatomy and physiology and whatnot. But I'm getting a new audience on YouTube of educators and people who want to know how to do this kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you mentioned before, right, like the equipment and the technology is one thing, right? But I think it's the same regardless of whether we'd be talking about like sport or anything else. You can have the best equipment, but if you can't like,
Yeah.
get out of your own head, then it's just, it's just not going to be enough. So yeah, as you can all see, we would be hard pressed to find somebody who is more knowledgeable on this topic. So once
Oh,
again, Valerie, thank you.
you're welcome. I wouldn't go that far. I'm just a little penguin on YouTube, But yeah, it's been a long road, and it's really a joy to get to share what I have learned. And kind of a lot of this is the stuff I wish I knew when I started, right? So yeah,
Well,
it's
everything is
really
easy if
great.
you know how to do it, right? It's easy.
Exactly.
Hindsight is 2020 always, I think. Um,
Always,
so
always.
let's get started in that case.
Okay.
I actually kind of wanted to just start with your history on YouTube in general and your history as a video creator. So maybe you could just tell me, because this last year has really motivated people, and motivated is putting it very gently and mildly, has motivated a lot of people to start using the tech and start making videos. But you did it like way before any of this was cool, way before a lot of other educators needed to do it or wanted to do it. So why did you start creating videos for your students those 10 years ago?
One reason,
Hmm.
students.
Right.
That was it. I know, one word answer, right? Just kidding. Um, no, the thing was, right around that time, maybe 10 years ago, more and more people were getting smartphones. People could record audio. Some people were recording video on their
That was
phones.
10 years ago now. I feel
And
it.
I know, right? And so my office hours are really packed, and my students would come in and they would ask questions. And they would say things like, oh my gosh, that explanation, can you do it one more time, and I'm going to record
Mhm.
it because my lab mate couldn't be here, or because I want to hear it over again. And so I said, of course, I anything that would help my students to process, I'm all
Right.
about that. And it became very, very common for them to do that. And then it was like, oh, can I record the video? Because in biology and physiology, we're drawing all the time, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Everything. I can't talk, like my husband, who's an Italian, kind of the same thing. I can't talk without my hands, right? We got to draw. Thus my love for explain
We're
everything,
all
but we'll get
Italians
to that.
now. Okay,
Right,
that's the main
exactly.
takeaway of today's webinar. We've all turned into Italians. Love it. Okay.
Yes, yes, we have. But it occurred to me, I should be the one doing this,
Mhm.
because I would be doing this very much, winging it, and I would make mistakes, and I think, oh gosh, I wonder where this video is going to end up. And YouTube was new, and education wasn't really big on YouTube. But I thought, first of all, I'd never imagined anyone other than my own students would be watching. And I started, making videos about the topics and the questions that my students asked the most, right? So that
Right. I mean, it must have been a
sometimes
huge time saver for you as well, right? Instead of answering the same question over and over and over again, you could be
yes,
like, there's a video for that.
yes, exactly. And like, this really allowed the whole concept of the flipped classroom to happen. And I was, I think I was doing it before the term existed,
Mhm.
because if the students there's so much good stuff that you can deliver asynchronously in a video. You
Definitely.
can edit it, and you can make it compact. And then the students come to class, and you can use that class time for more interactive stuff,
Exactly. I
for,
was gonna say that for
problem
discussion
solving. And
and problem solving questions and answers, et cetera,
yes,
instead of just reading some sort of like textbook, whatever, couple of paragraphs or whatever, right?
exactly, exactly. And so that was really where it all started. And the more I started doing it, and of course, like everybody, I started, using my the camera on my laptop and the built-in microphone. And it's cringeworthy. Now none of those videos are live, so don't go looking for those.
Everybody who looks
Um,
back at what they did 10 years ago thinks it's cringeworthy. Okay, yeah, my hair, like I look at my hair from 10 years ago, I'm like, oh no, no, that wasn't me, but it was. So,
exactly, exactly. But yeah, so I just it really is shocking to me as I look back on it now, kind of the evolution of the channel. I
Mhm.
didn't really start to think about it in a bigger at a bigger scale until maybe 5 years ago. I decided to monetize the channel because
Mhm.
I figured that was the only way I was going to really be able to, up my equipment. So all the money that I make, I put back into the channel or back into projects for the channel. And it's just, the connections and the things that have come out of it, how it has impacted my life and career, I would have never imagined. it has been a real blessing. I have
That
to
was
say, it's
actually
been a
gonna be my
great
next
journey.
question. That was actually gonna be my next question. So because you talk about how YouTube has changed your life, so how has that happened then?
It's incredible, the people that are watching your videos. I make videos assuming a certain audience,
Right.
and
YouTubers
sometimes the
originally,
people
right?
that are watching are like amazing researchers, medical professionals. People have invited me to come over and see the original documents, and to really get, and I'm
Wow.
thinking, you're watching the Penguin Prof on YouTube. It's, I don't want to name names because I didn't get their permission, but it has been really shocking. The breadth of the audience was much bigger than I would have expected, and just the opportunities, talking to groups of kids, adults, college students, medical school students. It's like I'll post something, in the before times when we
Mhm.
were traveling, that I would be going somewhere, and people were like, "Oh, we'd love to meet you. Let's have tea. Come on over. Can you talk at our university?" And I'm thinking, sure. Like, I mean, it really shocks me every time. And so, yeah,
That's
it's
the
just
thing. I
been,
think so many people like, they create content because they're hoping just to get the views and it's like all about that. But the truth is that when you create good content that's just like, genuine and the people come on their own, you don't actually really need to do that much, self-promotion. And I think it's all about just like learning to be yourself, to find your voice. And that's what you're going to tell us about today, right? If you have something to say and
yes.
you're passionate about it, then the people will come on their own. And it's actually quite, surprising and a pleasant surprise, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's very organic. I think if you, this is a tough line because analytics are helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I do look at my channel analytics, but I don't use them as a guiding principle. If I want to make something and I want to say something that, nobody is searching for, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it. And, people are either going to watch it or they're not. But YouTube gives you the opportunity to have a voice. And there's no, I mean, the viewers tell you if it's good or not. And that's what's really, I'm such a huge fan of the platform because I have worked with publishers in the past, and I was the co-author of a textbook, and I made some lab manuals. And I have to tell
Mm-hmm.
you, the amount of enjoyment that I got out of it, how much I felt like the end product was my voice, was not. Publishers have their own agenda. They're going to
Yeah.
make the book sound a certain way, the way that their analytics told them, their audience, and it was, and I said, I'm never going to do this again. This was a horrible, I wasted like a year and a half of my life on that. And it was not fun. And it was not my voice in the end. YouTube, I get to do whatever I want and say whatever I want, and the audience will come if it's good quality content. Am I adding, value to your life or not? And if you
Mhm.
are, people will watch. And if you're not, then they don't.
I think that's one of the greatest
That's
things
it.
actually about, about the internet just becoming like a widespread thing, access to the internet. There's just been this amazing like democratization of media that you don't now just have to, I don't know, hope that some producer somewhere is going to find your content acceptable after 50,000 tweaks and, it'll completely change your image and what you have to say and basically like, make you like kind of put you into a box. You can kind of do whatever you want. And if people like it, they're going to come. And so it is really, like I said, that democratization is something that I love about the internet in general, but especially about YouTube. So yeah, also I wanted to ask you about Explain Everything, about our application. So it seems that you just discovered Explain Everything on your own a few years back, and you even made a tutorial about how to use it by yourself. So how did you discover Explain Everything then?
It's funny because, like I said, in science, as well as so many other disciplines, I'm thinking about, everything from math to art and architecture, drawing is everything. And there are things that, with a document camera, I mean, yes, I mean, it can work, but it's just not as good as a digital whiteboard. And I
Right.
remember thinking, I mean, literally, I'm kind of a tech geek, and I'm always looking at new tech and, trying to find the best solution to everything. And the whiteboard world, whiteboard apps at that time,
Mhm.
I'm thinking this was maybe, 7, 8 years ago even.
So you've been
It
with
was
us from the
just,
start pretty much
yeah,
in
I
that
have.
case.
Yeah,
So
I
this
was
is
going
our
to say,
our
I
10th
think
anniversary this year.
yeah. Congratulations. That's awesome. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
No, it was, whiteboards were really, really limited. And then I
Mhm.
saw Explain Everything, and it was like, I have to say, and this is not a sponsored webinar, but it's really honestly true. It was unlike anything I had ever tried. And you guys combined the whiteboard with all the tools and more that a whiteboard needs to have with a recording capability that was so good. Even back then, with an actual like timeline and everything, you know, a real video editor. And I said, you know, this is it. And I showed it to my husband, who teaches organic chemistry. His struggle was even worse than mine, because organic chemistry is a field that it's basically all drawing. I mean, he always jokes and says, you know, I could teach a class and not say anything. They're just drawing mechanisms, you know. And how incredible to find an app that he could use. So I got him on it too, to actually record, you know, answers to his students' questions and things like that. And I've been a huge fan ever since. And so I use it. I always show it in my, I do a remote teaching certificate course, especially for folks who need to draw and record. Actually, a lot of people are using it live in Zoom as well.
Yeah, we kind of have three main use cases, and we've also been kind of keeping an eye out on what's the most popular. I think recording was the original one, but now, you know, what with the pandemic and everything, people have started using it like all sorts of different ways. So, but yeah, I came across your tutorial, the one that you kind of created, like a little tutorial video you created yourself on how to use Explain Everything. And I prepared a little fragment of it here, and I was hoping that Cooper could put it up on the screen for a moment, just like a minute
Here
or
we have
two,
a pen
just
tool,
so we
lots
can see
of different colors.
created. I believe this was last year, right?
Yes. Yes.
So sure, Cooper.
Please excuse
infinite colors
the COVID hair.
and
I did it
lots
myself.
of sizes. A highlighter tool,
Yes,
an
the
eraser
COVID
tool.
hair is definitely
this is
proof
Phil.
that that it happened last year. For sure.
It was done during the pandemic.
We've all had the COVID hair. I feel you.
Yeah, it was bad.
Okay.
It was bad.
So shapes, you can make lines and shapes. Here you have a text tool, you have a lasso, different types of selection tools, super helpful. That's how you get rid of objects very quickly. This is going to be a laser pointer. You have different size pointers and arrows and things for the actual presentation. The next one is your inspector. So when you select an object, this is super powerful. This allows you to group and ungroup objects and orient them, lock them down if that's what you want, all kinds of stuff. There's a fabulous undo button, very important. How can apps not have an undo button? I just don't know. And then you can control the type of presentation that you want to have.
Okay, so when you want to ask it, or
Cooper is taking care of it. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we just wanted to show everybody a quick clip of what it is that you had created, but now, because you prepared like a special video also for this specific for this webinar, and it's about a topic that I'm sure is close to everyone's hearts right now, which is allergies. So this one,
this is actually about the effects of COVID on the alveoli, actually.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's even closer to everyone's heart then. Okay, all right. So we're just going to put it up on the screen. I don't believe this one has audio.
No, I don't think so.
So if you could just tell me how you created this and how long it took.
I'm not seeing it.
It's up. I agree that it's up.
Okay. This is like an example of something that I could do very, very quickly. So this was not like edited. It was a question that came in, and sometimes the easiest way to answer a question is to create a short video response. And so that's really what this is. And it's very easy also to insert, if you want, your talking head also in there. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. It depends. Sometimes you want to maximize the real estate, and sometimes it's helpful to see and sometimes you have COVID hair, exactly. So yeah, it's really easy to do. I find it, certainly like everything, there's going to be, a learning curve. I don't think it's particularly long. I think the tools are very intuitive, and then you can just knock it out, share it, and it's done. And people are kind of blown away. They're like, you answered my question in a video that fast? Like, yeah, it's really not a problem. So
I really love that video just because it just looks so natural and so authentic. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but so many people are so stressed out about getting it perfect. And when I watched this video, I was like, okay, it's just as if me and you were like, in the classroom or wherever, and I asked you a question and you answered my question by sketching it out, on the whiteboard, right? So I like it just because it's so, like I said, so authentic, and people, I think, spend too much time wondering if things are perfect. But as I said, more on that in just one moment. I wanted to ask you, how long does it take you to do a little video like this one that we just put up on the screen here?
That one, literally, it was requested. And I think from start to finish, it was probably 15, 20 minutes. So, I mean, it's not that much longer, as you said, than it would be if I were to actually sit down, get a pad of paper or an iPad or whatever you're going to use and sketch it out and explain it to someone. And of course, the best part is you have a copy of it. And then if other people ask you the same question, then you have records. I have now folders on my computer. Some are biology and some are now like ed tech kind of stuff of questions. And I can literally just, send a link to the video and answer someone's question. And as far as they're concerned, it's magical. As far as I'm concerned, it's kind of magical for me too, to tell you the truth.
We use the word magical around here too, don't worry about it.
It is, right? As far as I'm concerned, it's to see it. It's so much better than just being told. And
especially
someone like
biology, chemistry, there's some stuff that you can't. You'd be like, well, the lung is there next to the, like, if you can just draw it, why would you spend time trying to describe it with words, right?
Exactly. So I can tell you that, you've got 300 million alveoli, and they're like little bunches of grapes, and they're all like one cell layer thick. And around each one, there's a dense network of pulmonary capillaries. The amount of time it takes for me to tell you that versus the video that you just showed, it's like, oh, there it is. There's the blood, there's the alveoli. Okay, got it. Next, and you're just, most people are very visual. And True. I am really a proponent for making content as accessible as possible to everyone. And the great thing about videos is that, you can caption them, you can have auditory and visual together. I'm always about people learn in different ways. And so the more different modes you can use, the more people are going to be able to get what you're trying to explain. So
yeah, we talk about that a lot as well, because we're, in constant contact with educators from all over the globe. And they've told us, a lot of times they've told us pretty much the same thing as you just said, right? Like some people learn better by watching, some people by listening, there's all sorts of different learning styles and habits and, et cetera, et cetera. And really just videos allow you to kind of tackle all of them at the same time. And everybody who watches it is going to, be able to get something out of it for themselves. And that kind of brings me to my next question, I guess, was, how do you usually use videos in your teaching? You mentioned the flipped classroom. So is it usually that? Is it maybe like pre-training videos, or maybe you get your students to even create videos for you, like as homework assignments? Because we have teachers who do that as well.
Oh, yes. It's actually all the above. I mean, first of all, in normal times when I'm teaching biology, I teach some classes asynchronously. And then like anatomy, physiology, those classes are face-to-face. And they always have a component on, for us, Canvas is our learning management system. Right. And so it will either be the video serves as the pre-class, assignment they have to watch. So they get the basics so that when we get to class, we can do stuff, solve problems, whatever. Or it'll be a deep dive. So after the class is over, it's like, okay, here's what we did. Here would be the next step. And, sometimes those are optional. It's like, if you're going to go into, pulmonology, let's say, this is some stuff you're going to want to know. And then sometimes, like you say, I think the best use of video is when the students make it themselves. So I'm a huge, huge fan of that. And of course, you need tools, basic tools that students can use, like Explain Everything, that, will allow them to make the videos. And the process of, you and I both know this, right? If you can teach it, you know it. So exactly. If you want to ensure that your students understand a concept, get them to teach it. And to me, that's the best. Like makes my little educator soul just sing. When I see my students on a video or live, of course, explaining something, drawing on the board or drawing on the app and explaining it, and you can hear it, right, in their voice, like, this is part of them. They know this. They're seeing it in their mind and they're imparting it to others. that's when I get really excited.
So true. You know, long before I even discovered Explain Everything, like I'm studying a second faculty currently. And like when I study for a big test that I have, a lot of times what I'll do after spending, you know, a little while reading and whatever, is like, I'll just talk my husband's ear off for like an hour and tell him all about these things. And, you know, bless his heart, he's always interested, or at least he pretends to be, but it really helps me. And like, once I've explained it to him, that's when I feel like I finally know it. And this gives you the ability to do this remotely, asynchronously, everybody on their own time. So yeah, that is fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, I kind of wanted to get now into the title of the webinar, getting back to the breaking through the fear and the building the confidence and all those things that we discussed beforehand. So you have described video production as painful, and I'm quoting here. And why is that? Why would you talk about it that way?
So I love to talk about this because it's something that, you know, when I say it, people who are listening, they say, oh my gosh, I never really thought about it like this before. But think about this. Video is painful because it is so fundamentally different than the way we normally communicate with other humans. Like, for example, the way Anastasia and I are communicating right now. Basically, during all interpersonal communications, there are three things going on, which you may not be aware of. But the first thing is what's going on. Like in your brain, you're aware of what is happening. And basically that's, do I look like an idiot? Do I look like a fool? This is where a lot of
everybody has asked themselves that question for sure.
Absolutely. And by the way, for those of you that are watching, you know, being on webinars and living on Zoom this past year, and being on YouTube so much, it does get easier, right? But that's the first thing, is you're wondering what's going on. And the second thing you want to know in a normal interpersonal communication scenario is what's going to happen next. So meaning, is the other person getting this? Is the other person understanding what I'm saying? And is it having the desired effect?
And I guess when you're standing in front of a class, you can tell, right? Just by looking at these people, you can see basically, you know, whether they're looking confused or whether they're like nodding and, you know, keeping up. And that's something that you just don't have when you're recording videos.
Exactly. And the third thing in normal communication is you're assessing how you're being treated and how you are being treated in the situation. So in other words, is your sense of self being enhanced or diminished by the communication that you're having? And the reason why video is so difficult is because it is a huge leap of faith in all three aspects, because you are sitting there talking to a lens, hoping first that you don't look like an idiot. Second, that the viewer is getting it. And third, that your efforts, you know, all of the work you're doing in making this video, that those efforts are going to be rewarded either in likes or subscribes or student success on your exam, or however you measure the success of your video. And I think that the fact that none of this feedback is available when you're making a video, whether we're aware of it or not, that's what makes it so difficult, because all of those are three very fundamental questions that you do not get the answer to until maybe after the video is released. And that assumes that you get views and that you get comments. Otherwise, you never know. So you're out there thinking, I'm just putting myself out there. It's this extreme act of vulnerability. And it's like throwing energy into a...
After this, are my students going to meme me? You never know, right?
Exactly. And what I have found is that, you know, I so wish that there was like a magic pill or strategy that I could give that could help people to get through those things. There really isn't. And that's why I always refer to YouTube as a marathon rather than a sprint. Because if you're really serious about starting your channel and taking maybe the videos that you've been making for your students, or, you know, and getting them out there to a wider audience, be prepared for a long haul, no feedback for long periods of time, unless you already have an audience on social media, you know, in which case they'll follow you onto YouTube, obviously. But it's the lack of feedback will really get to you. And most people never make it through that initial phase. They just get so disheartened. There's nothing good that comes back at you for such a long time. And most people just give up. They're like, this is kind of miserable. Why did I think I could do this? And it's hard, but you know, you learn to make videos by making videos. And they do start out, my videos started out really crappy. I'm not ashamed to say so. Sometimes videos I make now are pretty crappy, and those never see the light of day. But the way you learn to make videos is making them and putting them out there, and hopefully getting some feedback, or at least send them to your friends and family, or ask your students, what can I do better? Pick 3 things that my next video I could do better. And they'll tell you. And, there really is no other secret formula. My running coach says your body learns to run fast by running fast.
Exactly. I think that's
it's obvious, right?
It's true of pretty much everything, though, isn't it? Like, as I mentioned before, everybody looks at social media and we're like, oh, they're so perfect, they're a natural, they're this, they're that. But the truth is that everybody worked their butt off to get to where they are right now. Nobody is born perfect. Everybody has to get there. And we see the end result and we're like, they know exactly what they're doing. And that's not true. At the beginning, nobody knows what they're doing. And we just kind of figure it out as we go, I guess.
I'll be honest, I still feel somewhat shocked when people ask me to come and talk about, success on YouTube, mm-hmm. or, YouTube has asked me to come and be on panels for, EDU creators. Mm-hmm. And I think, I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. I mean, I think, but I also think that that's a good thing, right? Because I believe that as an educator too, like I'm a student forever. Like, mm-hmm. I think that's a really good mentality to have. So if you see this as a journey, and I hate to sound cliche, but it's really true. It's a journey just like everything else. It's not like you wake up one day and say, I have reached, the epitome of being an educator, a philosopher, a runner, a chef, whatever. It's always in process. And so I know that the videos I'm making now, hopefully in a few years, I'll look back and cringe over these. I hope that
you're hoping for that, because that means that you've made progress, right?
That's right.
You've probably heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Is one of my favorite things to bring up, during discussions like this. It's like that. It's this thing where basically the more competent you are and the more you know about something, the more you know how much you don't know. And I mean, it's a good thing because it motivates you to be better. It's kind of like Socrates' I know that I know nothing, just, with some data and research to back it up. But, and, the opposite is also true. Sometimes people who think, well, I'm at the absolute peak of everything, there's nothing I could do that's better, I'm perfect, are just, the people who never do make any progress. So no, I totally get where you're coming from. But all of the stuff that you're saying, these 3 things that you listed, that sounds pretty daunting. So,
yes.
Yeah, my next question is how, because you have a bunch of, educators, professors, that are looking to you for guidance, right? So how do you think you could help people, or how do you help people kind of break through that, despite all of the, the little, what's it called? Just like staring into a camera and all of the awkward situations that can cause?
Yes, I think that, the first thing to recognize is you're going to have to give up perfectionism. Mm-hmm. YouTube has taught me that, I can strive to make a really good video, but if I think about making it perfect, I am never going to hit upload because it is never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And just accept that, and that's fine. In terms of like how to start, if you're just that person who's been recording videos and you're just nervous about starting a channel, the things that I always like to think about, people ask me, should I watch other YouTube videos? And I say, yes, but don't watch so many of them, and don't think that you have to copy someone else's style, even if it's a style that you really like, because the goal, like you were saying earlier, is to find your own voice. And so the key to that is being relaxed. And one of the most difficult things, I think, is, finding your own voice, being relaxed in front of camera on a microphone. So I encourage people to start wearing or carrying a microphone, and you can use your phone for this, and figure out some time every week or every day where you can record. And I recommend that it's, somewhere, it could be private, somewhere outside, where there's absolutely no stakes. And I would even say in the beginning, you don't even really have to listen to yourself. Mm-hmm. But what's going to happen is
a lot of people hate the sound of their own voice, which is also something I learned, since the beginning of last year. So
we'll get to that too. But I think the relaxation, what will really help you is if you talk while you are walking. Mm-hmm. So spend some time And you can actually use music as well. A lot of people find that their breakthrough comes with singing in music. You have to be okay with people looking at you strangely, but it's a pandemic. So, I mean, what could be even more strange than whatever else is going on, right? It's already a really strange time. So you're outside talking to yourself in the park or wherever. And I would really encourage, whatever is comfortable for you, if it's running, a lot of like jumping up and down. The goal is to get used to the feeling of speaking without any kind of tension in your throat or your chest or your abdominals. Actually, that tends to be where we hold tension. And if you can practice, and it is a practice, if you can practice letting go, being free with your voice, a really cool thing is to like bounce up and down and just to make sound, make noise. Pretend you're 5 years old. If you've got kids, this will be a lot easier for you because you can just do it with them. And that is something that if you do it enough, when you sit down to actually record something, your body will have this, you will have had the experience of relaxation. That is something that almost all of us, when we sit and there's a camera and there's a mic and you tense, right?
Right.
And you can hear that tension in the voice.
It takes the authenticity out of everything too.
Yes.
It's no pleasure to listen to somebody who sounds like they don't even want to be there themselves, right?
So well said. So well said. So I think that the relaxation piece is something that you absolutely can't, I just can't emphasize enough. Here are the sort of the 3 steps that happen. And pardon me, because I get more into the physiology here, but the phase is like, here we go. So when you're actually like thinking about recording and you're trying to record yourself, this is known as the SRF technique, SRF.
Right. I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned that before. Yeah, sure. Do by all means much detail.
S is for struggle. This is the part that I don't really have to tell anybody about because you've experienced it. This is under sympathetic nervous system control. So you have what's called your autonomic nervous system. This is all the stuff that your brain is doing without your control. And the sympathetic division is your flight or fight division, right? So what happens in the struggle, like when you sit down and you want to record, but you feel the pain, that pain, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, you are judging and criticizing yourself before you, excuse me, as I hit the microphone, before you even say a word.
We are our own enemies a lot of the time, aren't we?
Oh, yes. Now, the thing is, you've got to push through that. And that's where the talking and making noise exercises on a daily basis will help, because you have to actually pass through the struggle to get to phase 2, which is called release. And that is under the parasympathetic division. Parasympathetic is what we call the rest and digest division of the autonomic nervous system. And that causes your heart rate to slow. It causes your blood pressure to fall. You relax and you calm down. And like I said, it's practice, right? So you practice ahead of time outside, in your bathroom, in the closet, wherever you are, turning on that microphone, talking, making noise, bouncing up and down, running, walking, doing whatever, so that you get to that release point. And then that's not actually the magic. The magic is phase 3, and that's what we call flow. So S is for struggle.
Right.
We've got the R is for release and F is for flow. And that is something that's actually, it's a very fancy name. It's called transient hypofrontality. So it's referring to the fact that your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that is making this so difficult in the first place, right? This is like the planning, the judgment, all of that, your decision making, all of that goes off. And this is when people describe like this outpouring of creativity. And your inner critical voice is silenced. This is a magical thing when it happens.
So liberating, right?
And it is. And do you know actually how I learned about this was from a friend of mine who was learning improvisational rap.
Rap, okay.
Rap, because the speed at which they go and people do not realize like
possibly comes from
how quickly. Exactly. It's like when you say there is no way you did that off the cuff. You had to have rehearsed that. And the rapper will say, no, that's just like, give me a word and I'll show you.
Now that you say it, it really does. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I'm sure that the more you try to rehearse that, probably the worse it would be, now that I think about it.
Yes, it is. And so, and that's true. I have to say, you know, in terms of video production, there's scripters and non-scripters. And I am not a scripter. I have tried to make videos with scripts, and I don't think I've ever published a single one because I sound terrible. I'm reading, I'm not enthusiastic. There's no emotion. I'm just, even though I try and I think, why can't I do this? I have to get into the flow state. I mean, every video that I've made that I'm most proud of, I'll tell you, it was a flow. And I maybe do 1 or 2 takes and that's it for the whole thing. And okay, part of that is practice, but part of it is the way I've always been. So and people say, wow, you know, that sounds so easy that you only do 1 or 2 takes. And I say, yes, but there was all this stuff that preceded it. So what I will do, and by the way, I take my own advice. So I go outside or I go to my magic place and I start talking and I talk about the topic that I want this video to be about. It's like, it's kind of auditory brainstorming. Yeah. And I just go, and sometimes it kind of turns into a rhyme or a song, or I really don't care. My whole goal is to release myself from that inner voice that's telling me, you know, this sounds horrible. How can you even expect to make this video in the deadline you have? Whatever all that is, right? And I just make the sounds, I make the words. And so by the time I sit down to make the video, I'm ready for flow because I've gone through the other 2 stages already. So yes, it's, yeah, I was just gonna say, yes, it's true that I do 1 or 2 takes, but that's because I've done my struggle and my release earlier.
Again, people see the tip of the iceberg, right? That's kind of the moral of that story. But yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit about that self-criticism because, you know, like on one hand, you know, taking a critical look at what you've done and what you've created is a good thing, right? Because it can motivate you to do something better. But on the other hand, you know, we as humans tend to take it too far. I sound horrible. I hate my voice. My hair looks awful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you draw that line between constructive self-criticism that will get you somewhere and make you better, and the kind of self-criticism that will just make you kind of like shrink back into your shell like a frightened turtle and just never do that again?
I love that question, Anastasia. That's such a great question. And I love it when faculty ask me that question. Some people are, you know, if you're kind of advanced enough, like clearly you have a lot of experience in front of camera making videos. And so you actually know that there's a difference. A lot of people, when they're starting out, they don't really know, and they're scared to ask for feedback of any kind because they don't know how to ask for what they need. So if someone makes their very first video and sends it to me, and I know how much, you know, strife and insecurities, you know, this brings up for folks, I'm very, very careful to select 1 or 2 things that I think are actionable, that they could change, that would make a significant difference. I am sure as heck not going to go and list all the things that are wrong with this video, because if I do that, the person is probably never going to pick up the camera again, right? It's just so I think for the creator, ask your friends and family in such a way where you let them know, or your students are awesome. Tell them what you need. Say, look, I'm really nervous about this whole video thing. This is one of the scariest things I've ever done. Maybe you can tell them why. And then say, can you tell me, you know, 2 or 3 things at the most that I could do next time that would really improve the quality of my next video? Recognizing I'm not going to become, you know, it's not going to be perfect overnight. But if you ask for that and even just explain, like, if it's hypercritical, I can't have so much criticism that I'm going to give up. And if you couch it in that way and you ask them, you know, ask your colleagues, whomever, they will totally get it. And I guarantee you, they are going to think so highly of you that you are putting in this effort and trying, because you know what? Most of them are too scared to do it themselves.
So basically, like, I was actually asking about like self-criticism, but it turns out that maybe just because we are our own worst enemies sometimes, and we really do nitpick when it comes to, you know, how much we require of ourselves. So you think it's actually better just to ask other people that you respect, other people that you trust, for them to just kind of, you know, let you know what they think.
I do. I would do both. I also think that when you're starting, it's the hardest time to criticize yourself. You have to look at your own videos, just expect that you're going to be disappointed. The only difference really between people who make videos and people who don't, it's not that the people who make them are less stressed by the experience or by the videos they create. It's just that, as they say, if you're scared, do it anyway. They just keep doing it. You do develop kind of a thick skin. You get used to the disappointment. You get used to being frustrated by your own, production quality. And you just say, every day or every week or whatever your schedule is, next time I'm going to try and do this better, because this I don't like. I don't like the way my breath sounds. I sound too anxious. And then maybe you can go and look and see, and there's kind of, the levels of audio. This is a whole other webinar, but how we produce sound. Most people get that the problems we have fall into a few categories. One is breath support. So as you look at your video, are you breathing comfortably? Does it feel like your breath is carrying through the end of the thought?
Oh my gosh, I've seen
Are you struggling to breathe?
Try to go through the entire paragraph on one breath, and you can just see them kind of like turning blue in the face as they're struggling to recite that. So that's, definitely working on breathing in any form of public speaking is, definitely a must, I would say.
It's essential. It really, really is. And you think, breathing is so natural. Yeah, but what we're doing now, this is not natural. And you're recording yourself, it's not natural. And you're going to find things in your breath and things that you do that just make you, I didn't know I did that. The next thing is what we call phonation, which is the production of sound or tone. And so that starts with your vocal cords, but it also includes other structures of the mouth and the throat. And then you have resonance. And resonance is about taking the sound that's produced in the vocal cords, those vibrations, and amplifying those vibrations through the rest of the body. So you have lots of air spaces and spaces in the body where sounds resonate. And for some people, resonance is the problem. If they're struggling with volume, let's say, most people will try and yell or, and they tense their throat and they actually make the problem worse, rather than realizing that you've got to learn, how to use your body to amplify the sound without extra effort. And then the fourth part of the speech story is articulation. And that is making meaning with the sound and making sure that the sounds you make are clear and crisp. And really with articulation, you're talking about consonants, right? Because that's what carries meaning. So that's, articulation gives you the difference between a cat, a hat, a bat, and a mat. It's a huge difference. So when you watch your videos, imagine yourself as a viewer who is struggling with new vocabulary in your class.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask about that, because I'm sure that you teach a lot of people for whom, English isn't necessarily their first language, or people with different auditory challenges, or et cetera. So this point is probably especially relevant for those kinds of students, right?
Yes, absolutely. And for everyone, but especially if you're teaching an introductory class with a lot of new vocabulary, students for whom, English or whatever the language is in your class, it's not their native language. Anything that you can do to improve their ability to understand your speech is going to be tremendous. And actually, I got really interested in all of this stuff in vocal performance because of YouTube. That's another way it changed my life. And I got myself to a vocal coach because I realized, it was funny, it wasn't until I looked at the waveforms of my voice on the screen that I realized some of the things that I was doing that I was completely unaware of.
Oh,
and it was like,
times I saw myself recorded, I was like, do I say that often? I had no idea, but apparently I do. I'm still working on it, but I know exactly what you mean.
So, I think that it's really important to recognize that, you can't tackle all the problems at once, but if you want to make good videos, it's important to assess where you are and pick what you consider, or what your students tell you are the most important things that would really improve your video quality. And I just want to, there's something else I just really need to say here.
Sure.
And that is, we all have had struggles and challenges and, difficulties in life. I think this is especially important to talk about now during this pandemic.
Definitely.
And it's part of who we are. But those experiences, we need to honor and understand them because they manifest in the way we communicate, in the way we speak, in the way we carry ourselves, in the way we carry tension in the body. And so I think getting awareness of that. So if you're the kind of person who kind of speaks like this, you know, and you're hunched over and you feel like you're not really sure if you should be taking up this much space, even in a non-talking head video, if they don't see your face, they can hear
still
that.
know that you look like that, don't they?
Yes.
They can hear it.
Yes. And so, I mean, that's kind of scary to say, but I think there's tremendous power in understanding why we do the things we do and deciding what we want to work on.
It seems like your knowledge of anatomy and physiology has also really helped you understand how all of these processes work. How convenient, huh?
It has been an amazing journey, I have to say. And actually being able to help other faculty members to take this journey and to gain the confidence. You know, I really do want viewers to know that if this is something you decide that you want to do, just do it. Don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't or that you can't, and realize, take baby steps. My goal is every video that I make, I want to make slightly better than the last one. And I usually try and like articulate to myself in what way. So I always see it as constant improvement. And, you know, whatever it is that you want to learn, whether it has to do with your voice or anything else, you know, there's tons of resources out there. The key is identify what that is that you don't like about your presentation and see if you can make it better. Find a coach, find someone who can help you, and you get better. I mean, it's like anything else. You know, you don't wake up one day and run a marathon.
Definitely.
In the same way, you don't wake up and have a successful YouTube channel, but you get a training program, you get a coach, you get help, and you start. Just start. You just got to push record.
One thing, I just really wanted to kind of touch on something you mentioned a little while ago as well, that I really thought was great, is just asking your students for feedback. And you mentioned that, you know, the people that you ask will respect you more. And I think that's totally true. It kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier about how everybody just wants to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, you know, get over it. And that's one thing. And the second thing is, you know, people, when they see that you're just as human as they are, I mean, they're professors, so you obviously know a lot more when it comes to certain subjects than they do, but the fact that you can, you know, have this humility to be like, okay, I know all of this, but I don't know about this. Could you help me? And like the people I respect most in my personal life are people who are not afraid to say that they were wrong, or maybe that they could do something better, or ask for feedback or something, because I mean, again, that's how you develop, that's how you evolve, right? And if you're just, you know, completely trying to avoid any sort of criticism, then I mean, you might be comfortable, but you're not growing at all.
Exactly. We never grow from our comfort zone. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why I love to assign video tutorials for my students, because once they go through the struggle, it's almost 100%. They come to class and say, I had no idea how much work went into this. I love your channel and I love what you do. Someone has to have the experience to realize how frustrating it can be. And how much work goes into it. Like you say, you know, the tip of the iceberg. Have your students do it, and their respect for you, no matter what you think your videos look like, the fact that you're making the effort, they so appreciate. And students want to hear your voice. You know, they want to hear their professor, their teacher. It means a lot more. It really, really does. So it's, I think, absolutely worth the effort.
Definitely means a lot just in general, but I mean, especially now, just because we've all been so, you know, locked up in our homes, a lot of us for like over a year at this point. And I think just hearing, you know, their teacher's voice and you being able to hear their voices, that does mean more than I think any of us ever thought it did until, you know, until suddenly that was gone. And we were like, I miss everyone. Like we just, you know, we didn't realize it until it was suddenly taken from us, you know, so.
Yes.
Valerie, I see that Cooper here has, sent me a few questions that that our audience has been asking. So the first one, Valerie, what is your preference to engage students live on YouTube or record and share videos?
Boy, you know, I have to say it's a tough call because it really depends. It depends on the class. I think there are advantages to both. And that's kind of why I'm a fan of mixed delivery. So I really, really like teaching classes where there's an asynchronous component where, you know, they watch a video where they do something ahead of time and then we come in and we do something live. I'm a huge fan of that. I really think that that's, you know, that's the best way to go. So I like both. I like to mix it up.
Okay, and we have one other question here. It says, to what degree does humor play a role or have an effect in your videos? So, oh, I can see you're gonna like this one. Hit it.
It's huge. Humor is huge. Actually, that was one of my biggest complaints with my textbook experience. There was no allowance for humor. And I try to infuse humor and jokes, and of course, in my case, penguins, into all of my videos. I want to make people laugh. Part of that comes from, you know, I believe we really have to work at humanizing. You know, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot these days, but humanizing online experiences is essential. And what is more human than humor? And making people laugh, that releases neurotransmitters in the brain that makes them comfortable, makes people feel like they're a part of something, and it opens them up for other positive learning experiences. And I like to laugh at myself. I like, you know, the world. I mean, it's humor is another word, magic, right? But it's like a magic key, I think. And I have had criticism in the past, especially when I was a young faculty member. And they said, you know, you might take things just a little too far. And, you know, of course, I never like do anything offensive or, I mean, obviously I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just really very relaxed, being able to, like I say, laugh at yourself. I think that is worth everything, because you have to remember that when students, this is what I think about, when students search and watch a YouTube video of mine, they're already frustrated. So they have an assignment where they had to do calculations with osmolarity versus osmolality, let's say.
Nothing funny about that.
And they're not getting it. They're not getting it. That's why they're on YouTube in the first place. So they're already in a negative space. Many of them have an exam in a few hours.
That's
right? I know this because they tell me in the comments. And, you know, and it's hilarious. And so if I can make them laugh, if I can make them relax while they're learning it, it's just so much better. So I think, you know, the more humor you can add, the more human you can be. You know, don't be a textbook. They have that already.
Right.
Be you. That's what they want.
I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, how you mentioned that you don't like to script things. And I mean, I don't know about you, but in my experience, anytime I've tried to script a joke into anything, it's just been a disaster and it's fallen just completely flat. And that's, I think, another one of the reasons why just, you know, I mean, of course, you have to have like a general plan of what you want to say, obviously, but yeah, just trying to stick to the script just really kills the humor. It kills the liveliness, the delivery. And like you said, it's like they're reading a textbook and they could do that. So why bother watching you if they could just open their book, right? So it just kind of defeats the entire purpose, doesn't it?
It does. And actually, I have to share one quick story, which was in preparation for lockdown over the summer. I was helping some lab faculty. We were filming labs so that the students could watch, would watch their faculty members do the labs, and then we would give the students the data and they would analyze it. I mean, it's not as good as doing it, but it was what we had, right? It's what we're doing now. And I decided to add a blooper reel. And so I kept all of the mistakes that we made, all of the things that we said that we could use. And it actually made such an impact. And the students said it was the first time they had really seen professors mess up and how like inspiring that was. It ended up having a very, very different effect than what I just thought it would be funny and, you know, just lighten things up a little bit. But it ended up being a really important teaching moment, because it was like, yeah, we've made all these mistakes. I mean, I think really the difference between faculty and students oftentimes is just how much longer we've been around making mistakes. And, you know, I think that was a tremendously valuable thing for us to learn. So keep the bloopers. And like, I learned a lot about video from that. And I started to think about adding bloopers to my videos sometimes, because because yeah, that's real life. That's unedited. That's what really happened.
I absolutely love that idea. And like a lot of times over here, when we talk with different educators, when we talk about like the shift and, in the way that teaching takes place from like this instructivist attitude to this constructivist attitude. And I think that students being able to see their professors as real people who mess up sometimes and, whatever, misspeak and yuck it up and, et cetera, et cetera. It kind of changes the way that we see that we would see these educators, right, as being like these infallible beings who are always like super serious and never have a good time, and people that you would be scared to ask a question of even, right? And I think that actually will play a large role in this shift towards a kind of more constructivist approach. What do you think?
I could not agree more. And I think that this is just increasingly more and more important in today's world. I grew up where there was the faculty member and then there was the student, and in between there was this abyss and you would not cross, and everything was just so austere. And I had a few faculty members that didn't view it that way, and those were the people that impacted me. And I remember thinking as a student, this is the kind of educator I want to be. I want to be real. I want to be a person. I want to be approachable and let students know that I don't know all the answers, but we're gonna figure out stuff together, and I'm just gonna be a guide and be a part of their journey more than me dictating to them what they should do, what they should know, how they should. I really think that in our current age of the internet, the role of the educator has changed tremendously.
Oh, totally.
And I think that is the direction that this needs to go.
Well, I mean, education, and I mean, especially higher education, is supposed to be about not just, making people memorize things, but it's about teaching them to think on their own. And you can't think if you don't ask questions, and you don't ask questions if you're afraid of the person that you're asking them of, right? So it kind of all ties in together. I see we have one more question here from, okay. Brian says, he gave us a suggestion for a to-do list. It says, scrap the script, learn to rap, and find a penguin. I think we could summarize the webinar that way.
I love it. I think that's absolutely perfect. Yes. Thank you, Brian. I'll get right on that. And as you guys know, if you've seen the Penguin Prof channel, I
from the penguin,
my sidekick.
Yeah, oh, there they are.
This is Flops. And, just speaking of humor and, being human, I'm not human, but the penguin, some people say, you're a college professor. I mean, seriously, you have a stuffed animal. But it's a lot more than that, right? It's about being fun, recognizing our humanity, that the subjects are hard, but we don't have to be, like a textbook and not have a personality. I think that, the Penguin Prof channel, the penguins in the channel, are there because obviously it's a huge part of my identity, because I was a penguin researcher, and penguins just really drove my whole career. But everybody loves penguins. There's something very welcoming and fun about penguins. The way they move is very comical. And I realized I didn't choose them for that reason, but that has ended up being, it's really worked in my favor, because penguins are fun and they make people smile. And very early on in the Penguin Prof comments, I saved my favorite comments, and the best comment I got, which really drove this direction of humanizing and being myself and just being human, was a viewer who wrote, "I just come here for the hugs."
Oh.
And I thought, that's the kind of YouTuber I want to be. And that's what I strive for always, to let people know that, my students, viewers, that you can learn this complicated stuff. It's fun. And, try not to take stuff so seriously. Life is really complicated, and try to find the joy where you can. And
that's actually, that kind of brings me to my, it kind of brings me to my last question here, because we were going on over an hour at this point, and I just kind of wanted to ask if you could summarize everything you said in like 3 or 4 tips. Just, I know I'm asking the impossible of you, but you could try.
I can try. No, I would definitely say the most important thing is to find your own voice. Once you start to delve in there, don't be afraid of it. Get advice from other people, but don't let that guide you. If your heart tells you something, you should
Mhm.
definitely follow it. And just not to be afraid to try to recognize that you are your own worst critic, and you're going to be scared, do it anyway. And small steps, keep going, and try and put as much good and positive, joyous things into the world, because we really need it. And there's a lot of people out there who are just, we're just trying to help. We're just trying to, make things go down a little bit easier. I add penguins, but find what works for you. And that's really all we can hope for. At the end of the day, be kind to yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us, Valerie, and thank you to everybody who was here as well, watching, asking questions, and participating. As you've probably gathered from this webinar, that is what professors like Valerie want. And thank you once again, Valerie. You guys can check out Valerie's channel on YouTube at The Penguin Prof. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. So
thank you so much, Anastasia. You are such a joy to talk to. This was a real pleasure, and I really, really love everything that you guys at Explain Everything are doing, especially for educators during this pandemic. It has just been amazing. So on behalf of all the educators that I know who so appreciate you, thank you so much for everything.
And thank you very much. And let us definitely keep in touch, because I feel like we didn't touch on half of the topics that we covered here.
Right.
I have a feeling.
I have that feeling too.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. And we will see you in the next one, right?
Okay. Thank you. Bye.